So anyway, we have now a video to share with you. The leader of the opposition party, Pierre Poilievre, is calling to sue Big Pharma. It might not be what you think it's about. So let's sort of the
Oh.
clip and then we'll talk about it.
Powerful, big pharmaceutical companies lied. They lied. They told our drug agencies in North America that their drugs were not addictive and that they were not lethal. And then they literally paid bonuses to the distributors of those drugs for the number of overdoses they could cause. McKinsey, Justin Trudeau's favorite consulting firm, whom he gave $100 million of contracts, actually wrote a strategy to turbocharge the sales of these drugs. And they preyed on working class people. People who had lost their jobs and lost hope went to their doctor with a sore back, and they were given these drugs. And found that it not only helped with the sore back, but helped with the way they were feeling about life. And they got more and more addicted until they overdosed and died. These drug companies knew exactly what they were doing. In the 90s, we sued the tobacco companies for the costs they put on our healthcare system. Now what we must do in Canada is what they've done in the United States. We need to sue these big pharmaceutical companies to make them pay the full price of the treatment and recovery. Those are the lawsuits. And we will do what Alberta is doing. We will double the number of treatment spaces so that we can take our brothers and sisters off the streets. We can detox them, give them counseling, give them hope, give them a chance to start their lives over. We can do it. We're going to save our brothers and sisters from this pandemic of drug abuse, aren't we?
I have so much to say here, but
I do too.
I can't believe, okay, so it's taken what, roughly 10 years? When did the opioid crisis even begin? I think it was approximately 10 years ago.
Easy 10 years, yeah.
So it's taken 10 years to try to gain some accountability from pharmaceutical companies. I mean, historically, good luck, because that hasn't traditionally gone well. And so I'm assuming that many people might have thought that the context there would be in relation to COVID-19. Right. And I have to be careful the way I word things because we're still on YouTube and, community standards and all that jazz. But it's not. It's in regards to the opioid crisis, which if you live in Canada and North America, United States, it has not been immune from this either, but the increase in addiction and fatalities, which were exacerbated by the COVID pandemic, especially in your province of British Columbia and Alberta, they saw the massive casualties due to overdose and addiction because of the lockdowns and the public health measures actually caused a bunch of these deaths.
Yeah, we went up
deaths 58%. Of disparity.
Yeah. The first 3 months after the lockdowns, we went up 58% overdoses when everybody was staying home and staying safe and not working and getting $2,000 of CERB.
I was just going to say, you get your free $2,000 a month handout. Well, if you're somebody who's struggling with addiction and mental health disorders, then you're going to just take that money right away and, hey, look, I can go buy, a huge, some hits here off of the street. But I think that trying to hold the pharmaceutical companies accountable is noble and would be amazing to see, because these people are trillionaires, really. They have increased their bottom lines exponentially, especially as the COVID-19 injection rollout has seen such sweeping success in developed nations. But the track record there isn't great. Historically speaking, Big Pharma, it's like a dent in their pockets if they are ever held accountable. And I would assume that the process to hold them accountable costs taxpayers anyway in our court systems, right? To try to garner any sort of monetary compensation from them. Well, first you have to pay lawyers and go through that process, and it would probably end up costing us more money in the long term. But also, I think it's important to start funding an initiative not on the backs of taxpayers that is not harm reduction. There is no data, no rationale to show that harm reduction actually reduces any sort of harm. So I think that Pierre Poilievre is on the right track here, but I have some serious reservations as to how efficient it will be going that route.
Right. Well, I think what you're seeing here, like you said, most people are probably thinking it was going to be about COVID, but I think this is Pierre's way of saying many people want me to go against the pharmaceutical company, and this is how I can discuss that safely. And as far as the cost involved and things like that, some battles are worth fighting, and sometimes I feel like it's the information that comes out. So I am for looking into this, but you're right, it has to be something that's feasible, that makes sense financially and things like that. But I am all for pursuing this and seeing what could come out of it on the path of it. And you're right about harm reduction. Those were my beautiful Vancouver streets that we were showing down there as well. There isn't evidence about that, and BC has just decriminalized drugs and things like that. Doesn't mean that people are going to stop being addicted just because of that, right? So you have to look at the mental health issues with this, and that's really where the funds need to be going, and that is the most urgent thing that we can do. And we saw that with the lockdowns. That was a mental health issue that happened. People were told, I'll give you a perfect example. I've worked with many people who struggle with addiction. And so what was happening in the lockdowns is you have these men and women, but let's just use a man as an example, just because that's who I knew the most of. And so they had been clean for a few years. They got themselves their job. They got their child back in their life for, every Saturday or what now. And their job was their identity. That was their symbol of, I've made it, I'm contributing to society. It doesn't even matter if it was a minimum wage job. They were on cloud 9 with that lifestyle. Then you told them their child wasn't in their bubble and they couldn't go to their AA meetings or see their mentors anymore. And again, they were sitting in these small rooms, subsidized rooms, and getting $2,000 and not even allowed to work when they were able to. And so that killed people. And that was mental health, right? So that just shows how important the mental health aspect of staying clean, staying recovered, and getting recovered is. It's a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm. And the importance of community, right? Locking people down,
community.
Isolating them from their communities,
right,
and their safety nets, just thrust them back into old habits. And now we're seeing the fallout of it. And people were saying stuff like this very early on in 2020. I mean, there was many people who could see the writing on the wall, but because we punish anyone who goes against the mainstream narrative, and anyone who's a dissident, we disavow them and instead label them and slander them as some sort of conspiracy theorist, because we have that sort of normalization in our society. Those people were disregarded and ignored. And now it took 3 years to really pay attention and become normal to say these sorts of.
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.